All right, magic makers. Typically, I try not to date this episodes, but at this time of year, many of us are reflective. What happened in the previous year? What are we trying to accomplish this year? Life, family, work, all of that magical stuff. And so today, one of the things I wanted to talk about is more than just health. Health is great, but for many of us, one of our biggest causes of stress is our work. And I wanted to bring on Brenda Rigney here because she helps midlife women really assess what it's like to potentially be an entrepreneur. And I know that for me, I didn't choose the path of entrepreneurship. It kind of was like I didn't know what else to do. And maybe some of you guys are sitting out there and you're asking yourself that same question, or maybe you've been laid off and you're like, what do you do now? Like,
Mm.
and you don't know that if you want another job, but you know you want to contribute in some way. So I decided to bring her onto the show because she helps midlife women figure this stuff out. So, Brenda, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kim. I had a little giggle when you said you kind of fell into entrepreneurship. I did too. Like it wasn't like someone tapped me on my shoulders at 35 and said, "Hey, you're brilliant and you should become an entrepreneur." What boss is going to give up their employee for them to go start their business, right? So that didn't happen to me. And then it was like I went through my divorce and just a bunch of like big life changes at midlife where I was like, what am I going to do? And I quit my corporate job and I launched my business. And luckily I did have some like friends and family that encouraged me to do that, but it took me like 48 years to kind of figure that out.
Yeah, people always ask me like, how did you start your business? And honestly, I was sick of being laid off. And so
Mhm.
that's how it started. And then
Yeah.
it just kind of, evolved over the time. So as people are listening to this, and you talk to a lot of, new entrepreneurs, what are some of the questions that like I should be asking myself when it comes to, maybe I have been noodling around about potentially being an entrepreneur? What are some of the questions I should ask myself?
Yeah. Why are you not starting this? Like, like I think that's a big thing. And I'm not trying to sound facetious about it, but it's like you're already thinking like, well, what should I do? What will my business be about? And before you even go down those paths, because I think we talk ourselves out of it, or maybe we have people in our life that talk ourselves out of it, like, hey, why would you want to start a business? You've got a paycheck coming in every 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Things like that. Like, a business, like you're going to work 24/7. You're going to be at the beck and call of your clients or employees, depending on what type of business you've got. And those things might be true, but at the same time, like you could also be sitting in your corporate job, like I was at 48, sitting there going, okay, I'm going to stay here for the next 20, 25 years, um, not doing what I love anymore. Like I kind of lost that sort of mojo, that spirit to like even want to do it again. Like I had gone from like one company to another, try to think, okay, maybe that will
Right.
reignite, some spark in me. And it was just, excuse me, swearing, but shame shit, different pile.
No,
Like it was just like, like I couldn't find it. And I think, you can kind of substitute it. But for me, it was just like the wake up call of like, what do I want? Like that is the key question. And I think there's like a woman listening to this podcast right now, and it's like, what do you want? And even if it seems far-fetched, if it seems like totally ludicrous, like everyone in your family is going to think you're cray cray, or you don't even think you have the money to invest in it, just even simple exercise of like following through. What do I want? And
right.
and writing it down, like journaling it. And it doesn't necessarily mean you have to action it by Friday, but it's just like answer that question and see where it takes you.
It's so funny. You're absolutely right. I think if it pops in your head, it's probably been there for a while.
Yeah.
But I feel that we get so beat down by you have a paycheck.
Hmm.
What are you going to do if this doesn't work out? And so, like, so many people, instead of being like, hey, go girl, they always like come in with like all the naysaying things.
Yeah. Well, and here's what I find happens too, and I might be generalizing for some, and like I'm not here to knock our friends and family either, right? Like, I mean, they are there to like root you on and cheer you up and all those things. But you're probably also going to them asking their advice when you're
Yeah.
not feeling good about things, right? Like when you're
Mm,
like, you know what, I don't like this job and da da da, I feel so tired, I'm so burnt out. And who wouldn't be burnt out if you're in a job or in a career or in a stage of your life where you're not necessarily inspired or motivated every day to kind of go do it again the next day? So they're just going to hear the complaints or the
yeah.
frustration part, and they're thinking, well, taking on something else might not be the solution. So it's kind of like damned if you do, damned if you don't, grass is greener, and they just want what's best for you.
Yeah.
Here's like the thing, like family and friends just want what's best for you. And that might mean like not taking that plunge into entrepreneurship. But here's my other thing. Who's talking about entrepreneurship right now in your friends, family, colleague circle that you can tap into?
Yeah.
And when you put yourself in the room where that conversation's going on, now all those thoughts and all those naysaying comments that other people were saying to you or you were saying to yourself start to kind of take a different shape, because it's like, oh, I'm actually in the room with other entrepreneurs, people that are have like maybe a year ahead of me, 2 years ahead of me, 10 years ahead of me, that are doing some of this. And not that it's not hard or it's easy, it's just there's a whole other planet, like there's a whole other solar
No.
system
Yeah.
of, conversation that wasn't happening when I was in my corporate job. And I knew
Yeah.
that about myself. Like no one was talking to me about entrepreneurship. Like I said
Nope.
earlier, my boss wasn't tapping him on the shoulder going, wow, you've reached a level in your career, Brenda, that you should start your own business.
Nope.
They just wanted me for themselves. And, and so I think, once I got myself into the room with other entrepreneurs, I was like, there's like a whole other way of thinking, acting, being here. And my other side note is that I do come from a family of entrepreneurs, which is the ironic thing. My dad, my mom, my grandparents, they all ran their businesses. And I still didn't become an entrepreneur, right? Like I worked for entrepreneurs, but I didn't choose that path myself. And then once I talked to them, some of them were like, yeah, you know what? It's going to be hard. There's going to be some sleepless nights. There is going to be like those whatever calls that you're going to have to like react to and jump in. But you get this other side, which is, the freedom to create, the freedom to be who you want to be, like to set the pace of what your business looks like, that I don't think a corporate career, past midlife is going to give you, right? So it's just like, and everyone comes from, different backgrounds, different situations. But I think, if that's an inkling, something that you've been thinking about and you've been talking yourself out of it, what if you just sat in that space and actually asked that question, what do I want? And see
Right.
where.
You're right. I think the other thing it's really easy to, and I know I'm guilty of this, is that I created a job versus a
Mm,
business.
okay.
And so I think for many of us, it's really easy to kind of say, from sitting down here and say things that I'm good at,
Mm-hmm.
and saying, oh, things I'm good at, things that people would actually pay me money for, is that decide if you're looking for a job or if you're looking to create a business. Because
Right.
I created a job and then I was like, I freaking hated the job, and then I now have created.
Yeah, and sometimes you got to go through those motions. I probably did the same thing. Like I came out of corporate and I created a consulting company that was like fractional operations support because I'd been a former COO. So it was just natural for me to kind of do that again for other companies. But then when I was working again 24/7 at the beck and call of CEOs, and not just one CEO now I had like 5 or 6 CEOs.
Right. You
And
you
and they all
recreated your job and you're just like,
yeah, and they're all working Monday through Friday plus weekends, and it's just like, oh wow, what have I done? And I got rid of my benefits program. Like, what was I thinking? So it's like, I had to kind of almost go through that. And I think that's also the beauty of entrepreneurship, is that you're never one and done. So anyone that's sitting right now thinking, okay, it's impossible to be this way, you don't have to have it all figured out in your
mm,
first iteration or your first draft of your business. You almost kind of have to go through those challenges and those mistakes to kind of figure out again what's that sweet spot. And now I would say, okay, after like a couple iterations, like I'm in the spot where I want to be and I love it. But if I didn't go through some of those things and someone just brought me to here, I think I still would be,
stumbling.
yeah, stumbling. It's human nature to make mistakes, learn from our mistakes, and then overcome the mistakes. So like, and my other thing would be is maybe at midlife, because we've arrived at a certain level in our career in corporate, we don't want to make mistakes anymore. We don't want to
Yeah.
be the newbie, the new kid on the block. And it's just like, it's going to feel like that for a little bit. Enjoy it. Tell your brain it's okay. You're not going to die. And, and get back in there.
I think the other mindset of this is kind of like, who am I to be an entrepreneur? I think the other
Mm,
mindset is, I'm too old.
okay.
Like what, as you're kind of navigating all the things in life, it's like maybe your kids are now out of the house and,
Mm.
maybe you're going through divorce or whatever, and you're kind of like, am I too old to make this pivot?
Yeah. Well, I mean, here's the thing that I know, and you probably know this as well, because I know you work with a lot of midlife women, especially in the United States. There's 40 million women right now that are going through perimenopause, definition of midlife, come from like Gen X. Like, how many do you need to work with? Like, I don't need to work with 40 million people. Like,
Right.
I don't want that, right? Like, I mean, like that kind of defies like why I also set up my business. Like, I want to have a profitable business. I want to have like a revenue generating business, but I also want a business where I can take a day off from. I'm not building an Amazon, and so I think there's enough people, like when you look at sort of stats out there, depending on who your niche audience is that you want to work with, that, there's a viable offer there to work with them. I think the other thing too you mentioned about like the age piece is design the business so that it's part of your life. And I talk about this all the time with members inside my community is that we're not just designing our business, we design our life first. And our business is just a domain, it's a facet of our life. Like our life is made up of relationships and health and wealth and community impact and spirituality and travel and education and learning. And our business is just an arm of that. So we first design our life and what we want that to look like. And it's like, yeah, I'm a 55-year-old woman. How do I want to like eat, sleep, drink, poop every single day, right? And then my life, which incorporates my business, supports that. So I'm not designing a business where I want to work 24/7. I'm not designing a business where I take calls before 10 o'clock. I'm not designing a business where I take calls after 4 o'clock. Like I design a business based off of where I'm at now in my life and what's important to me, not when I was 20 and I could work 24/7.
Right. So you're basically saying, for those people who are like, oh, I'm, past my prime, if you will, you kind
Mhm.
of have to define what you're looking for now at this age.
Yeah.
No, I like that because I think a lot of us don't step back and get clarity because in the corporate world, we were told our clarity for so
Yes.
long,
Yeah.
right?
Here's your job description.
Right. Or, I always say this is that when I first started doing fitness, my trainer was like, well, Kim, what's your goal? And I was like, wait, I could define that, for so many years, like,
Yeah.
whoever set the goal here and it trickled down to whatever department I happen to be working in. And it was
Right.
like, wait, I'm in control now. And I think a lot of women at this age are like, holy shit, like I get to make a decision. Okay, this feels
Yeah, and
good.
even like when I manage teams in corporate, like I kind of figured that out a little bit. Like, okay, yeah, I could just be one of those cascading goal managers where it's like, oh yeah, we got the, orders from the top and everyone has to do their share of the pie. And sometimes you got to do that. But I would always want to know from my team, well, what do you want? Like, what do you want out of your career? What do you
Yeah.
want while you're working here? And they're like, wow, I'm working here. I'm like, well, I don't expect that you're going to be here for like 40 years. So,
Yeah.
you know, and if you are, great, but every year needs to look a little different. What do you want from your experience working here? Well, I want to do this. I want to learn how to do this. I want to get more exposure to that. Great. Here's our strategies that are coming down from the top. What would you like to sign up for? I think if you signed up for this, it'll help you get that. If you do this, it'll help you get those things over there. But I think you're right. Like you need to design the life that you want. And people might be listening going, "Oh, well, Brenda, that like sounds all fine and well." And I'm like, "Yeah, well, here's the thing is if I say, you know what, I want to design a life where I can work 20 to 25 hours a week, 9 months out of the year, to be able to take 3 months off or have the flexibility to work where I want to work. Well, what do I need to do to make that happen? But what we end up doing is we spend so much time figuring out the what and the how that we don't get clear on like why we're doing this, what's important to us about it. We get too wrapped up in the minutia of like, well, I don't know if I have the money, the time, the bandwidth, the expertise. You'll find it. Like I've been on the planet for 55 years. Most of the women that I work with, somewhere between 40, 50, 60 years on the planet. Have you not figured out how to do some things in your life that you didn't know how to do yesterday? Yes. We know how to tie our shoelaces. We learned how to ride a bike. We either went to school or we got a job early on. We built relationships, we built communities, we built networks. We can do that again. So I always say to people, like, we're not starting from scratch. You already have skill sets on how to do something new and different in your life. You just need to now apply it with the entrepreneurship piece. But again, you don't need to know it all at once. You don't need to know how to do every spreadsheet or upload every file or, be the whiz at viral videos, day one of your business. You'll just learn as you go, like you've been doing the last 48 years or the last 55 years.
You know, I think the piece that here that the I'm going to go two roads with this one.
Mm,
One that you gave a great blueprint for that. If I'm currently in a company, maybe I've never had the conversation with my manager about where I see my career path. And some
right.
companies are very good about that, and other companies are
Yeah.
like, shut up and just head down,
Heads down. Yeah.
do what
Command
I say.
control. Yeah.
So I think that is for if those people who are like, I love the company or whatever, the stability, blah, 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 like you've given them a path, but then you've also given a person that kind of permission to like daydream, of like,
Mhm.
what does life look like? What is I remember when I first started, someone asked me like, what was my ideal day, right? And so you said, I don't take calls before 10 a.m. or after 4 or whatever. And it's like, as you kind of start to write down like what you think your ideal day is, that might start to kind of like unlock some thoughts that you were so locked up in your attic that
Yeah.
that you never even thought of. Because I had a good friend for years, she's got 5 kids. Woo.
Right. Yeah.
And for it wasn't until her last kid that she's like, you know what? I want to be able to go to a baseball game and not have to like play Jenga in order to get to
Wipe a nose, get a snack, take someone to the bathroom. I just want
right,
to
like
sit and watch a game all
or
the way
just
through.
or just from work, like just to be able to like not feel like, okay, if the stars align, I can go to my
Yeah.
son's game, right? And so
Right.
she's like, that was her ideal like scenario, to be able to finally see a kid play a game and not be like on the phone, or like I can only see to a certain period and then I gotta run to someplace else. But I really like that. But the other piece that I think comes in this is self-confidence.
Hmm.
You know, how can women start to build that self-confidence that, you do know enough and there is something that you can contribute to whatever it is that you are your plan. And it doesn't have to be this like master, like you said, you're not building Amazon unless that is your dream.
Yeah. Well, great. Awesome. But yeah, like self-confidence. Okay, so a wise person once told me this and I loved it. Because you again going back to corporate, you'd maybe hear some feedback from your boss. Oh, if you were a bit more confident in that meeting, or if you did this more confidently, you'd show up differently. And it's like for women, we always hear the confident thing. Like if you can just
Yeah.
be a bit more confident, really nail this, land the plane on this. It's like, thank you.
Or too
Confidence
confident.
or too confident, yeah. But I think confidence, and this is what this person is instilled in me, is confidence comes from taking action.
Mm,
So taking action today, like literally moving the glass over here, it's an action step, right? And I learn not to put it here because it might spill. So you have to try things and you have to have confidence first in yourself that you might fail, you might spill this glass of water on the laptop. Whoops, I won't do that again. And I'll learn from that. But that's the key thing is that you have to be able to take action. And you take action based off of this vision that you set for yourself. So I'm going to become an entrepreneur by, June 2025. I'm going to leave my corporate job. I'm going to figure this out. Da, da, da. Like I'm going to create this type of business. And then I start taking actions toward it. I don't have to necessarily, again, know all the answers. I'm going to learn along the way. Like me saying earlier about, yeah, I don't want to take calls before 10 o'clock or I want to take, only work 9 months out of the year or work 20, 25 hours a week. When I declare that and I let other people know that I want that, who's doing it best right now, right? Go
right,
learn from those people. And then they're going to tell you, okay, Brenda, the way you do that is you do this, this, this. Okay, I'll try that. I'll take
right.
action. And I'm going to learn from that. And I'm going to learn how I do that well and how I fail at it. And that's going to give me confidence. So for all the women that are out there going, okay, well, I don't know if I am like confident enough to run my own business. You won't know until you try.
Yeah.
So, there's such things as side hustles, side gigs, all those things. I always put a time limit on it because I
Mhm.
think, the other thing also for midlife women or just anyone in general, when you've got one thing going on and then you got this going on, this going on, this going on, it's like we start creating burnout for us before we even get to burnout.
Right.
So my thing is that if you're going to try a side gig, awesome, but set a time limit. Like, okay, I'm going to test out this concept for the next 6 to 12 months, and then I'm going to make a call. Because I think being in corporate full time or having your day job full time and running a side business and looking after kids and looking after aging parents and trying to get a date night with your partner and all these things that are going on in your life just adds to more complexity. And then you end up hating your business, right? You end up like, oh, I can't get this side gig off the ground. So set a time limit. Like I'm going to try this out for the next 3, 6, 9 months and then make a call.
So two questions that came from there. So the first question before you said that last piece that I was thinking about
Yep.
was, you said give yourself a timeline, but before you leave corporate. And I agree, like, you're not going to wake up tomorrow and be like, I'm out of here. I'm taking the goldfish. You
Note to
are,
self, I did do that. So anyways, this is a side note. And I like kind of like, yes, I did do that. I didn't have the 6 month runway. I literally was like, bye.
right. And some of us do get to that point
Yeah.
where you're just like, I'm mad as hell and I can't take it anymore. I've had those like Norma Ray moments myself.
Yeah.
But for some people, like you said, it could be the like give yourself this like runway so that you do have some, savings, or you have benefits or whatever it is that you need to kind of feel that you have some stability. But you also
Mhm.
said about side hustles, and let this if and let this side hustle stay for a certain number of time before I make a judgment call. What if I just want the side hustle? If I'm just looking for like a little extra to pay for my kids' activities. Like
Mhm.
soccer costs a lot of money, so I'm just using this little side money to pay for vacations or extracurriculars. Is that still like a dabble, or can I be successful in just doing side hustles and keeping it corporate?
There's lots of people that are successful doing side hustles. Absolutely. I just think at this stage, my recommendation is like, you got a lot of stuff probably going on. You've got responsibilities. At midlife, you've worked to a certain level. Again, kids, no kids, grandkids, there's things that you want in your life. And do you want sort of when I think about not that there needs to be an equal balance between all those
Mm,
domains of my life, but kind of the career slash business piece, the relationships, the health, the wealth, so at midlife, we got to figure out our health. You and I've had
yeah.
conversations about this. Like we got to put our bodies first. We got to put our minds first. We got to work on some of the things that maybe we shelved a little bit in our 20s,
Mm,
30s, and early 40s. And it's like the perimenopause door is going to open whether or not you like it or not.
right.
And so do you need another stressor? Do you need another thing that you've got to like manage now? And when is it time for you to also focus in on the relationships that are really important to you? Or maintaining those relationships. Like we start losing friends in our 50s and our 60s.
Yeah.
We start losing family members in our 50s and our 60s. So do we want all of our time, all of our brain effort going into business career, or how are we setting those goals? So I'm not going to answer the question directly. I would go back to anybody and say, what's your vision for your life? What do you value? 2 to 3 values. And what are your goals that link into health, wealth, spirituality, community impact, business slash career, relationships, right? Like, how are your goals set up for you? Because
You
right
know,
now, if I hear career, like I got to manage my corporate career and I got the side hustle,
yeah.
something else in the rest of your life is not happening for you.
And as you were kind of describing that, you're right, because at this age, many of us have been on the hustle
Yeah,
wagon for a really long time.
right.
And as you mentioned, how long can you be on that hustle wagon? Like maybe your side hustle is doing well and you're happy about it, but again, you have to kind of like you said, what's falling off? Like, are you not sleeping, right? Are you
Right.
not working out? Are you missing baseball games? Are you missing out on date nights because you're doing said side hustle? So I think
I say
overall,
this yeah, I say this all the time to my clients. Like, we are midlife women. We know our shit. We have done stuff. Like, you can do lots of things. You are so capable. Awesome. What if you just did one thing?
and I have the same issue with my client too. It's like we're praised that I can like put so much on my
Yeah.
back and
Yeah.
carry it versus, if I were just to carry this ball, you're gonna be like, that's all I can carry.
That's
And
kind of boring. It's kind of
yeah,
boring. Yeah, it's just like be boring, and know that you wore that badge proudly for the last like 45 years, but you don't need to necessarily wear it anymore. You can
no,
get a new badge, a new bumper sticker, right? Like it's just like, hey, I get to do one thing and I get to do it really well.
yeah, let's make one thing cool. Like, not
Yeah,
like I was had another interview today, and we're talking about how like, if I were to call up a friend right now and I'd be like, "Hey, Merry Christmas, how's it going?" "Oh, girl, so busy."
so busy, so tired, so stressed out, so burned
Yeah,
out. Yeah,
that's it's, you never like, oh my God, I'm so excited. Christmas is next week. Like you don't ever hear that. You just hear the stress, the busy, the grind.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually did that. So just as a little experiment. So between leaving my corporate job and then starting my business, I took a gap year. And so I took a full year off, plugged into some of my savings, like, again, don't necessarily learn from me about some of these situations, but I just never did it. And I needed to, I felt kind of rebuild some things. I was going through my divorce at the time and I really needed to just kind of cleanse some things. And I made also a commitment during that full year. Every single time someone asked me, how are you doing? I said, incredible.
Mm.
Even if it was like the lowest point of the day, even if it was the day that I was signing my divorce paperwork, I said, incredible. Not because I was signing that. It was just like, it was a conversation starter because people were like, oh, cool.
Right.
I figured you have so much going on right now. You might be kind of tired. And I'm like, yeah, I just didn't, I wanted to change my thought process. And so I forced myself to just say, I'm incredible. And not to be not compassionate to somebody else or empathetic to what they were going through, but I just needed to change my thought process that not every day you have to be tired, even though you might be tired, right? Like, it's like, it doesn't have to be the first reaction. And also, what would it take for me to feel incredible today instead of tired, burnt out, bitter about something? So,
And I like that reframe because I feel like it becomes this like automatic response when someone says, "How are you?"
yeah.
And when I was in corporate, there was this woman, she was a VP of sales, and she always had this like big smile on her face. And so every time she walked by, she'd be like, "Hey Brenda, how's it going?" And you'd be like, "I'm doing great." She's like, "Good to hear." And like before you even got out the last part of your response, "Good to hear." And so the joke, okay, you guys know I'm a little dark. So the dark joke that I used to make, I would be like, I just murdered a family of four. And she'd be like, good job. Like,
Good job.
because it's like she didn't take the time to hear what you said. She just assumed you were going to say great
Right.
and buzz right by you.
Yeah.
And so it just like just became this joke. So anytime, and she always used to wear a lot of jewelry. So you always used to hear her walking down the hall
Clink,
clinging.
clink, clink, clink. Yeah.
Yeah. So whenever we were like, and one of the women who used to sit near me would be like, Kim, did you kill that family of four? I'm like, it was a family of five today. And it would just become this like big joke because that's how she just never heard you. She just was like,
Right.
I'm moving on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think the getting back to is kind of like what we were sort of chatting about. I still go back to that sort of primary question that you asked me about, like, where can women start on this conversation, on this journey, is like getting back to like what you want. And
Yeah.
I mentioned earlier about defining your vision for your life. It's also about identifying values. Values are something that's like really important to me. And I have come from work environments where there's like 24 values and mantras and all these things that you have to memorize. And I used to just adopt them. I'd be like, oh, that sounds good. Yeah, sure, I'll sign up for those ones. And then it was kind of like in this exploration during my gap year, I was like, okay, well, what do I value? And there were some
Mhm.
things that, like, beliefs, passions, values that family, friends, again, past companies, mentors had given me along the way. But this was my opportunity to kind of define them for myself. And I remember reading Brene Brown's book, Braving Greatly, Daringly, what's that?
Daring greatly.
Daring Greatly, thank you. And she talked about creating values for no more than two values. I stretched it out to four. So I use my values to make decisions on where I spend my time, who I spend my time with, what I'm saying yes to, what I'm for sure saying no to. And that has also helped me in the design of my business and how it supports my life. So I use those 2 to 4 values as like the decision maker. But it was a good time for me to also be able to say, like, you know what, this is something that's always been like a guide for me and it's not serving me anymore. Versus this one over here, I really need to bring forward and use more in my life. And that has helped me out a lot too, because I think it's easy to kind of start doubting yourself, which then is that confidence piece that we were talking about earlier. But if I have my values and I'm making decisions by my values, then that's all the confidence I need.
I like that. Because as an entrepreneur, the funny thing is that like you make the rules now, right? Like
Yeah.
you decide how you want it to go. And initially you are going to stumble, but eventually you are going to fall across like, here's my value and here's how I broke that value because
Mhm.
I was, and you can kind of like do your own CSI, if you will, about like why you got in the predicament that that you got into, and not in a beat the crap out of yourself, but more in a like, like, okay, this is why said thing happened.
So here's a really great tool that I would say for all your listeners. Like, let's get out of the beat up phase and let's just, and it's reflecting, it's journaling if you want to like sort of go about it from that perspective. But there's 3 questions that I ask myself at the end of every week. Friday, 2 o'clock, it's just bookmarked in my calendar. I ask myself, what did I love about this week? What did I learn this week? And what made me strong this week? So not what did I suck at? What did I make
Yes.
a mistake in again? Oh my gosh, you're back here again. Like those thoughts come up on the regular. I think for anyone that owns a business, anyone that's just like a human being, those thoughts
Yeah.
come up on the regular. Anytime you're facing adversity, conflict, something that shatters you, right? Those questions of like, yeah, like, why are you doing this again? Why is this coming up for you again? Versus let's just script it out. If you want to, channel some of more of those, and I don't want to just say positive, flighty responses or thoughts, but more like get back into action so I can get that confidence happening again. Ask myself 3 powerful questions. What did I love this week? What did I learn this week? And what made me strong? You will find one thing out of your week, out of the last 6 days, and Friday being your day 7, you'll find something.
Yeah, and I think it also helps when you ask those, like, Tony Robbins says, you ask better questions, you get better answers. But
Yeah.
also, if I become more reflective, it's easy for me to kind of tap into a different, source in my brain versus always looking for the poop on the carpet. I'm now
Yeah.
kind of like, all right, this poop on the carpet, how do we handle it? How do we manage this?
Right. Well, and when you start this exercise, you may not find something that you are strong at this week, but that's okay. And then so next week when you ask yourself that same question, guess what? Your brain is now going to be queued up to look for something, right? Or it's like, actually, I should put something on my calendar next week that is going to help me get stronger at something.
Right. And the thing I also like about these questions, it doesn't have to be cataclysmic.
No.
I remember when I first started in the business, people were like, oh, you really need to have a gratitude journal. And in my mind, when you say that, gratitude had to be this big thing, like, oh, I saved a kitten from a tree kind of gratitude, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
but as I kind of was like, let me just break it down to the things that like made me happy. And
Mhm.
so at the time I was doing a lot of group fitness classes and I used to have to park on the street. So the fact that I could like find a spot easily, I'm like, that's gratitude, right? Like, because now I don't have to like run down the street to get to class on time. So it's like, as you kind of start to say, like, well, this week, it's like, hey, I finally sat down and told myself what my one value was.
Great.
Good on you, right? It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be like I landed 5 clients this week. It could just be like I put my
Yeah.
booty down and made a value.
Yeah. And here's the thing is that I think if you get into a regular practice, that's why I just bookmark it in my schedule. Before, like you said about the gratitude journal, it would like take me, it would exhaust me, right? Like it would take me
Right.
half an hour to kind of come up with these things. Now it's like, I know this is coming up Friday at 2 o'clock. So I already am thinking about these things on Tuesday. It's like I'm already like looking for those gems that I can like report back to myself on the Friday because I'm just in this routine of doing it. And like I said, if it's not coming up intuitively, just from where I'm spending my time, then I put it in my calendar like the next week. I'll just like, if I'm sitting there Friday at 2:15 after doing this exercise, I'm like, I didn't learn anything this week. For some reason, I was just completely like flatline. What am I going to do next week? I'm going to look at my calendar right now and change something, make time for it, book it. And that could be anything like listen to a podcast, read a newspaper article, finish that chapter in your book that you wanted to do, like just whatever it is. Like I'll just make sure that that gets into the schedule. It may mean moving some things around, but I'll make sure that that's in there. And then eventually it's just like I don't have to think about it so much. I know that my schedule and what I'm saying yes to is helping create that in my life for me.
And I like that because I also think that as a newer entrepreneur, you struggle with, you're like, so I got 8 hours. What do I do with my time? And those kind of questions, kind of like, okay, learning. And it's like, well, I don't know anything. So, now it's like, okay, what do I want to learn more about? And I know that you have a great membership so that it's like, maybe it's like, I'm going to make sure I spend 30 minutes in the membership this week and kind of scroll through and maybe there's something that piques my interest of like, I should learn more about whatever it is you decide you want to learn more about.
Yeah. Or, I mean, I love that plug for the membership, but it's like even today there was a member that put in something about her business, whether or not she should actually put in a low ticket offer. And like 10 people have already contributed to that conversation thread. And she at the end said, wow, this is amazing that I just got all this like feedback from everyone about why I should do it, why I shouldn't do it. If I did do it this way, and so that just made her a little bit stronger that week. Plus, for the people that contributed to that conversation, it just puts them more in their expertise, right? It's them taking action around what they're known for. And again, that helps build up their confidence. So,
Right.
but yeah, I think that you can do that. But for sure, going back to those questions, I think it's a great way just to kind of like unplug yourself from the negative thinking or looking always for the mistakes and the failure, even though they're
Yeah,
going to happen.
they are. And, we're, I can't remember the statistic about how like attuned we are to more mistakes than we are to the little bright spots that we've had across the entire week. And so I kind of like hinted about your membership. You started this membership, and
Mhm.
what if I'm someone who's kind of thinking about entrepreneurship? Is this something that I could be a part of?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you are still sitting in your corporate job and you're thinking sometime in the next like year or 2 years, I want to get into entrepreneurship, and it's like start getting in the room, join the Aligned AF community membership and be a part of those conversations. The women that are in there are either just like you in the sense of being in corporate and wanting to start up their business, or maybe they've been in it for the last like 1, 2, 3 years and struggling with some things. Maybe they're not necessarily getting that recurring revenue that they want to see month to month. Maybe they've poured a lot of money into their
Mm,
business and they're still not necessarily getting the results. And I mean a lot of money in the sense of like building websites, hiring copywriters, hiring the bookkeepers, all these things. And not to say you shouldn't go after those people, because some of those people are actually in my membership. Like I have website developers, bookkeepers, and copywriters. But there's like some things that you should outsource to in the very beginnings of your business, and other things that, if there was a template or a tool that you could just drop into your business today and get it done, would that just make things easier for you? Like
mm.
if you have like a great, low ticket offer that you want to start selling, do you need to like hire a copywriter, bill out like 5 to 8K in copy to write that email sequence, or could you just use the template that we've got in there to get you going, to get you started? Right? To bring in the revenue. And that's where it's like, I want to make sure that entrepreneurship is accessible for women. And I
Mm.
don't want it to feel like you have to buy the $20,000 mastermind when you first start your business, or again, invest in all this outsourcing to things that you don't know how to do. Like, you know how to do things in your life from your past career. And maybe you just need a few tools, templates, and a community of people that are going through it just like you to help support you and lift you up.
Gotcha. No, I like that because you're right. I think that depending on how you kind of stumble into entrepreneurship,
Mhm.
sometimes you can stumble across those very expensive programs and then feel disillusioned because it didn't deliver what you're looking for. But I like your approach where it's like, I'm just figuring my stuff out. And
Yeah.
so give me the opportunity to start to figure some stuff out so that if I do need to make a bigger investment, I am informed of it versus thinking that's the only way to get to where I want to go.
Yeah, or you're sitting there in your corporate job thinking, what, I've never sold before. Maybe you worked
Right.
in human resources, for example, and you've never been on a sales team, and you've never sold a product or talked to customers like on the front line in an organization that you've worked for. So the whole idea of sales or marketing, an offer, your product or your service seems really scary to you. And then you immediately think, well, I got to hire like a social media community manager. I'm like, well, you could, or, come into the Aligned AF community and learn in there, and also use the tools that we've got available to you. So you can, you don't necessarily need to think that this is going to be an impediment to your business. Again, I
Gotcha.
want entrepreneurship to be accessible. If you're thinking that you want to start a business this year in 2025, go for it. And get those foundational pieces to help you start bringing in what I like to say 10K months, because I feel that's a good replacement to a corporate income. You can pay for things in your business, you can invest in your business, and also make sure that the daily living expenses that you potentially have will be covered. Because I don't want you necessarily, like I hear stories about, yeah, I made like 100K in my first year of business, but I only took home 5K or 10K, after
Right.
like
You
tax
paid
it,
it and you paid everybody else out.
and you paid everybody else out and you're not taking any money home. I'm just like, no. And like, like let's make sure that you're getting paid first. And let's make sure that you're also growing your business at the same time. And then as your business grows, for sure, invest in outsourcing, new technology, areas where you can expand and grow your business. But yeah, it's not like burn through your 401k starting up your business.
Yeah, agreed. And I like your approach because there are, I've heard the horror stories too that you're just like, oh Lord. And you just want to like reach through the computer and give them a big hug.
Yeah, and and I'm not saying the $20,000 masterminds don't work. I'm just saying it's a lot of money to invest in your business up front when maybe you don't even necessarily have an offer yet on the table. You don't know if it's been validated from customers, and you could probably use that for some other overhead, tools and systems that will help you generate those revenues or not work 24/7 in your business, right? Get some more automation happening in your business. So that's where, we've got guest mentors in the community. So if you're a community member and you've got something you think is going to be of value to the community, which of course everybody does have, it's like they can be guest mentors. We've got systems people in there. We've got copywriters. We've got AI specialists. They'll teach things in the community, and then you can take those things or not into your business. And there's frameworks and models that, will help you get from point A to point B a little bit easier. But the big thing that I also stress for the entrepreneurs that I work with is you need to come up with your own framework. Like you can take the best of the things that I've learned and how I've skinned my knees. But at the end of the day, you need to come up with a model that's going to work for your business. And so we help them create that.
Perfect. Perfect. So friends, I know that, usually I talk about health, I talk about fitness, but I also feel that, your job plays a lot of uh, emphasis on your stress. And so if you've been thinking about this, or maybe you've gotten laid off and you're like, trying to find a job, but thinking maybe this is the way to go, check out Brenda's membership. What is it? Is it $5 a month? It's like
It's $5 a month right now. Like we're filming this in December. It is going to go up to $9 a month in mid-January, so depending on when this podcast comes out. But hey, you know what? If there's a scary difference between $5 and $9 a month, just email me and we'll figure it out, or DM me on Instagram.
but
Like I don't
even
want that to be, I
but
don't
even
want that to be
still,
an impediment. Yeah.
But even still, for $9, I'm like, I could get a cup of coffee. It's like less than a cup of coffee and something at
It's
Starbucks.
less
So
than a
like,
cup of coffee at Starbucks, especially when Starbucks is charging $1 for tips. Like
oh, don't even, let's just start there. Like, I'm just like, you just put coffee in my damn cup. Like, I'm like, I'm gonna need you to massage my head, something to give me,
I need a foot massage with that cup of coffee.
yeah,
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. So or your Netflix subscription or your Hulu subscription. So think about it right now. Like what subscriptions are you paying for monthly that you use or you don't use to stream TV that might not be helping you with your business? And you could join the Aligned AF community. Again, I don't want there to be an impediment for women to like this needs to be a choice, right? Like I would
Right.
love it that for sure all 20-year-olds get the tap on the shoulder. But right now I'm focused on midlife women. Like we need this tap on the shoulder to think about alternatives in our career and doing things that are good for us also, like our health, our relationships. We do have a lot of things going on at this stage in life, and it doesn't necessarily mean that we need to be doing that at this pace for the next 20, 25 years.
No, and I absolutely love that. And so, Brenda, I ask everybody before I wrap up my interviews, what's one thing that makes you feel magical?
One thing that makes me feel magical. Uh, Yeah, you asked me that at the very beginning, and I should have something rehearsed. For me, I think it's getting outside, being in nature when I'm outside,
Mm,
not in my business. And so for me, it's taking like a daily midday walk with my dogs and my partner Scott. It's taking bigger walks on the weekends and going to new places. I love walking in new countries. Like walking is just a big thing for me right now, and it's also really important for our health, right? To move our body. So, and that's probably where I get the most magic. It's like the biggest connection that I have with my partner, with nature, and then also just my creativity. I get lots of inspiration when I'm away from my laptop, away from my phone.
yeah, me too. It's funny that sometimes like I have like my headphones in and then it's like I'm halfway through my walk and I'm like, I never press play. So it's really nice to hear that. But yeah, I love like nature. That's really, really good. All right, Magic Makers, Brenda's community, $9. If you are thinking about even remotely thinking about entrepreneurship, this is the easiest way to tap your toe in and see if it's for you. And this is a little different, but I wanted you to kind of see that there is another alternative out there than to have that hustle and grind life. If you are just kind of like, you don't know what to do with yourself. So take the leap. And Brenda, where can people find you on the socials?
Instagram is probably the best place to find me. I hang out there pretty much on the daily. So at it's Brenda Rigney. I'm on LinkedIn. My website is brendarigny.com. So it's always like my first and last name, and you can probably find me anywhere on that, Pinterest, YouTube. But yeah, Instagram is probably the best place to find me, and DM me there.
Perfect. So I've linked all of that in the show notes. So absolutely, like if there was one aha moment that you took away from this, I would love for you to screenshot this and tag myself or Brenda and let us know what that aha moment was for you. All right, Magic Makers, enjoy the rest of your day, and I will talk to you next week.